The wind outside howled as the rain slid in streaks down the stained glass windows of my grandmother's old Victorian home. The chandelier above me flickered, casting gold light over the mahogany floors I had once tiptoed across as a child. That house, with its creaky floorboards and sunlit library, was meant to be mine. It still smelled of her, of lavender oil and freshly baked cinnamon bread. My throat tightened. Grandmother Rose had passed just 3 days earlier, leaving behind a silence that echoed deeper than grief. But grief was only a shadow compared to what I was about to feel. My sister had always been a performer, tears when they suited her, smiles when they served her, and silence when it cost nothing. From the moment Caroline walked into the room wearing black stilettos and a smirk that didn't belong at a funeral, I knew something was off. Her lips brushed my cheek, but her arms stayed limp. She whispered, "We'll get through this together," and yet her eyes wandered to the portrait above the mantel, the one where Grandmother Rose was holding my hand. She hugged me like a stranger. Her perfume was different, expensive, foreign. I sat across from her now in the drawing room, waiting for the lawyer to arrive for the reading of the will. "I'm just glad it's almost over," she said. Caroline twirled her hair lazily, glancing at her phone. "Over?" I asked, my voice already trembling. "You mean her life?" "No, of course not," she lied. "I mean, the uncertainty, closure. We need that, don't we?" He cleared his throat, opened a file, and began to read. She'd tell me about the old house, about how she saved for decades to restore it, how she wanted me to have it one day. "It's not just a home," she'd whisper. "It's a legacy." She didn't even blink when she said it. Not really. I was the quiet one, the planner, the thinker. "There is no other will in our possession. There must be a mistake," she promised me, I said, almost laughing. "The one grandmother took to art museums and antique auctions? Emma, I swear, I didn't know." Carolyn had always rolled her eyes at that, said she'd rather go clubbing. The flowers grandmother had planted, tulips and daffodils, were beginning to wilt. She was older by 3 years and always faster, prettier, more adored. But I loved those afternoons. We'd sip lemon tea while grandmother sketched. 2 months before grandmother passed, she had stopped trusting people. She said, "Caroline's charming, but charm without honesty is just poison in perfume." So I believed her. When the lawyer arrived, everything changed. His name was Mr. Blake, a slender man with round glasses and a voice like wet paper. It took all of 2 minutes to shatter my world. She wore a cashmere coat, her engagement ring flashing in the light. I, Rose Whitmore, being of sound mind, leave my estate, including all properties, financial assets, and personal effects, to my granddaughter Caroline Whitmore. Silence. The words hung in the air like smoke, choking me. "That's it." Mr. Blake looked confused, but it was a small affair. "You know how grandmother hated drama," Caroline gasped dramatically. Too dramatically. I didn't expect this. She looked at me, feigning innocence. She was a terrible liar. Later that night, I stood alone in the garden. Caroline had taken everything. The house, the accounts, the art, and as I stared at the reflection of the porch light on a puddle, I remembered something. Why hadn't I seen it coming? The next day, I saw her again, this time in the local cafe. "Lucas and I are planning a honeymoon in Greece," she said casually, sipping her overpriced cappuccino. My blood ran cold. Lucas, my ex, the man who left me without explanation 3 years ago, the man I once planned to marry, and now he was hers. "Oh, didn't I tell you?" she added, watching me over the rim of her cup. "We got married last month." The way she smiled, I could have screamed. She didn't just take the inheritance, she took him, too. And for the first time in my life, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply sat there watching her gloat. And I thought to myself, this isn't over. Not by a long shot. The news of Caroline's inheritance swept through our small town like wildfire. Friends from church, neighbors who once shared casserole dishes and Christmas cards, all whispered behind closed doors. "Poor Emma," they said. "Didn't she live with grandmother? Took care of her for years." She smiled for the sympathy, gave interviews about legacy and carrying the Whitmore name forward, and posed for photos on the front steps of my house. Lucas, tall, confident, still as handsome as ever, directed the movers with a clipboard in one hand, and Caroline's designer purse in the other. But Caroline, ever the actress, had prepared. I watched from my car as the moving van backed into the driveway. One morning we were planning our wedding. The next he said, "I need space," and was gone. I stayed in the shadows, my heart pounded like a war drum in my chest. 3 years ago he left me with no explanation. Now I knew why. Later I received an invitation not to a wedding that had already happened. It was for a celebration dinner. "Join us in celebrating Caroline's new home and marriage," it read, handwritten, in her calligraphy. Just pure venom, gift-wrapped in expensive stationery. No shame, no apology. I didn't go, but I saw the pictures. a gold-framed photo of grandmother's portrait on the mantel beneath it. The same vase I gave her for her 80th birthday, now holding imported roses. Lucas raising a glass and a toast. Caroline twirling in the marble foyer. That was supposed to be mine. All of it. I trusted the wrong people. I sat beside the headstone, fingers curled around a thermos of tea. The way she used to drink it. The next morning, I drove to grandmother's grave. I failed you, I whispered. The wind blew gently, rustling the petals of the lilies I had laid there. And then I remembered something she once told me, not long before she got sick. If I ever disappear before I explain everything, don't trust what's read aloud, trust what's written down. It struck me then there had to be more, but you must not despair. I drove straight to my storage unit, where grandmother's boxers had been placed temporarily. The ones Carolyn hadn't bothered with, full of old junk and sentimental clutter. I opened the first box, scrapbooks, old recipe cards, Christmas ornaments, and then, at the bottom, something strange, a blue leather envelope with a broken clasp, tucked beneath a pile of sheet music. Caroline may have outmaneuvered us for now. You were always meant to inherit this house, this legacy. I created a backup plan. Look for the man who notarized my first will in 2009, Mr. Whitman. He has instructions that no one else can access but you, the house, the investments, the art, and it was signed but never filed. Be careful, Carolyn isn't who she pretends to be. Inside, a photocopy of an unsigned will. She suspected Caroline would try to forge something, so she made a verbal agreement with Mr. Whitman, an old family friend and notary, a letter in grandmother's handwriting and medical files about me, and convinced the courts that grandmother changed her will out of concern for my stability. My hands shook as I unfolded the letter. She knew this might happen. My dearest Emma, if you are reading this, then what I feared has happened. When I explained who I was, he didn't seem surprised. Love, grandmother Rose, I couldn't breathe. The other document, dated only months before grandmother's death, bequeathed everything to me. But there was something else. The medical records were falsified. Diagnoses, therapist notes, medication logs, things that never happened. If you're seeing this, then Caroline has done exactly what I feared. But I trust you. I've left a paper trail. Now all that remains is for you to decide how to fight back. It was a report saying I suffered from delusional paranoia and depressive instability. It hit me like a freight train. Caroline and Lucas had framed me. They'd painted me as mentally unfit, used that to discredit my claim, and Lucas, the man who once told me he loved my mind, was part of it. Inside, for days I didn't sleep. I combed through every document, every journal entry grandmother had kept. He was now retired, living in a small town 2 hours north. I drove out the next morning. Mr. Whitman greeted me with kind eyes and hands weathered from time. She told me you'd come, he said quietly, and then he handed me a sealed envelope. Grandmother's video message recorded 2 months before her passing. The same heart she used to destroy mine, a certified will, notarized and legally binding. Instructions on how to proceed. I watched the video in his living room. Emma, darling, grandmother said, smiling into the camera, and in that moment I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt powerful. I didn't want to win in court. I wanted to win in her heart, and I knew exactly how to do it. The days blurred together after the will reading. I was living in my grandmother's old cottage on the edge of town. What was supposed to be my inheritance now vacated, gathering dust, and technically no longer mine. Everything felt tainted now. My sister had stolen more than just money. She'd stolen our history, our bloodline's heart. Caroline had already listed it for sale. A loose panel in the floor? It wasn't much. Just a small corner that didn't sit flush like the rest. My pulse quickened. I knelt down, pried it open, and found a small tin box, dusty and untouched. I stayed up nights poring over memories, photo albums, her handwritten recipes, even old letters. Then, one night, as I sat curled up in the attic, wrapped in my grandmother's quilt, I noticed something odd. It was documentation. Notes, legal references, a secondary will, a clause she had crafted that left everything to me but only if Caroline tried to contest the estate or acted with malicious intent. Inside were 3 things. A faded photo of my grandmother with a man I didn't recognize, a sealed envelope with my name on it, and a worn leather journal. I opened the letter first. Dearest Lily, it began, if you're reading this, then the worst has happened. I feared Caroline would do what I suspected. This journal contains everything you need. I trust you'll know what to do. He had been my grandmother's legal counsel for decades. My breath caught in my throat. The journal, pages upon pages of my grandmother's handwriting, wasn't just a diary. Everyone around me still believed I was the emotional one, the unstable sister. Even Aunt Maggie, who used to bake cookies with me every Sunday, said, "Maybe it's just time to let it go, sweetheart." A stubbornness my grandmother always said I got from her. I couldn't believe it. The next day, I went to see Mr. Alden, the town's oldest and most trusted lawyer. When I showed him the journal, his hands trembled. This is legally binding. She must have added it in the final weeks. While Caroline flaunted Lucas at charity balls, I met with notaries, verified the journal's legitimacy, documented every conversation, and quietly collected evidence. And this, but I do recognize her handwriting. He was surprised to see me, but kind. I never saw this, he said. If what's in here is legitimate, yes, it could invalidate the current will, but would this change anything? I asked, voice shaking. He leaned back. But what? It hinges on intent, and proving malicious manipulation won't be easy, especially with Caroline already holding legal ground. And for now, that had to be enough. I left with a copy of the journal, unsure what to do next. Let it go. How do you let go of everything? But something inside me sparked. From that day forward, I began rebuilding. Not just my case but myself. I had no allies, no sympathy, but I had the truth. I didn't rush to expose them. No, this wasn't about vengeance. This was about something far deeper. Dignity. Lucas showed up at my apartment one evening. He was disheveled, quieter than usual. I just needed someone to talk to, he said. Things with Caroline aren't what I thought. I let him speak. I didn't forgive, not yet, but I listened. His regret bled through every word. She twists things. I don't know who she is anymore. Maybe you never did, I said flatly. Tears welled in his eyes. I'm sorry about everything. I didn't know you chose her. I interrupted. You helped her. You lied in court. I did, he admitted. And I regret it every day. I didn't need his apology, but I let him keep talking, because each word was another crack in the illusion they had built. The next weekend, Caroline threw a party, a ridiculous celebration of her new estate. The irony was poetic. I walked in uninvited. Gasps echoed through the room. Caroline's face drained of color. Emma, she hissed. What are you doing here? I came to return something, I said. One of Caroline's so-called friends recorded the moment on her phone. Everyone watched as I pulled out a large envelope. The original trust, grandmother's letter, and the evidence of forgery. Gasps, whispers. Lucas stood in the corner silent. His eyes never left mine. I looked straight at Caroline. I handed the envelope to a lawyer in the crowd. Would you mind verifying this? But I'm not here to scream. I'm here to show the truth. The room went dead silent as the lawyer looked up. This is real. You built everything on lies. You took what wasn't yours. Caroline laughed nervously. She's lying. That's fake, is it? It took minutes. And I want you to feel the shame you so eagerly tried to bury me in. People started walking away. Caroline's allies turned their backs. Lucas stepped forward. Caroline, he said, tell me this isn't true. She didn't answer. The downfall had begun, but I didn't feel triumphant. I felt ... free. The silence was everything I needed. I don't want your apologies, I said. I just want my name cleared. Tears streamed down Caroline's face. You don't have to destroy us, she whispered. You already did that yourself, I replied, and then I left. Behind me, whispers turned to murmurs. Lucas and Caroline left town soon after. No goodbyes, no apologies, just a silence that echoed louder than any confrontation. The air inside felt different now, lighter, peaceful. Inside was the family ring, grandmother's most cherished possession. Beneath it, a handwritten letter in her delicate script. Her presence lingered in every corner in the scent of lavender that still clung to the curtains. In the books, perfectly aligned on the shelves, and in the teacups that hadn't moved from the cabinet since her last afternoon, read, their once perfect facade crumbled quietly, piece by piece, until nothing remained but a memory tainted by greed. I returned to grandmother's house not as a visitor, not as a victim, but as its rightful heir. One rainy evening, while organizing the attic, I stumbled upon a small velvet box tucked deep inside an old cedar chest. The house was warm, the sun poured in through the windows. And when people try to steal your story, write a better one. One where you win not by taking back what was stolen, but by becoming someone they can never destroy. A vase of fresh peonies sat where her crossword puzzles used to be. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then everything has unfolded as I feared, but also as I hoped. So I launched the Rose Foundation, named after grandmother, offering legal aid and financial support to women trapped in abusive or manipulative family dynamics. I met survivors, warriors, and dreamers. Each story I heard reminded me that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means building something meaningful from the wreckage. You've shown resilience beyond what I imagined, and strength I always knew you had. This ring is yours now, not for its value, but for what it represents, our family's legacy of integrity, heart, and wisdom. Carry it forward. I sipped tea on the front porch every morning, surrounded by quiet, by strength, and by peace. Tears welled in my eyes as I slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, as if waiting for me all along. I didn't just want to inherit wealth, I wanted to honor it. Months passed, seasons changed, and with every passing day the pain lessened, not because it was erased, but because it was acknowledged. In the final scene of this chapter of my life, I sat at grandmother's desk, now mine, writing scholarship letters to the girls we sponsored. It's knowing you didn't just survive, you transformed. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't fire or fury, it's peace.